When my daughter opened the front door of my Denver home that Tuesday afternoon, the last thing she expected to see was me sitting in my father's old leather chair, holding a stack of bank statements. Her face went white. The real estate contract she was carrying slipped from her hands and scattered across the hardwood floor. Behind her, her boyfriend Troy froze on the threshold, his eyes darting toward the door like he was calculating an escape route. "Dad?" Melissa whispered, her voice barely audible. You're supposed to be in Florida." "I was," I said calmly, not moving from the chair. "But funny thing happened. I got a very interesting phone call from the county recorder's office. Something about a property transfer I never authorized. I think we need to talk about the house you tried to sell, the money you took, and everything else." That's when she started crying. But let me back up and tell you how I got here. Sitting in my own living room, watching my only daughter realize her plan had completely fallen apart. My name is Robert Hansen. I'm 63 years old, and I spent 35 years working as a structural engineer before I retired 2 years ago. The house I'm sitting in isn't just any house. It's the 3-bedroom craftsman bungalow my parents bought in 1968 in the Highlands neighborhood of Denver. When they passed away, within 6 months of each other, 5 years ago, they left it to me. Back then, it was worth maybe $400,000. Now, with Denver's real estate boom, properties on my street sell for $850,000 or more. My wife, Linda, died 3 years ago. Ovarian cancer, just like in those medical dramas where they catch it too late. She fought for 2 years, but the cancer was relentless. After she was gone, the house felt enormous and empty. I'd wake up reaching for her side of the bed, forgetting for just a moment that I was alone now. Melissa stepped up during that time. She lived in Aurora with Troy, about 40 minutes away, and she started visiting every weekend. She'd bring groceries, help me organize Linda's things, sit with me while we went through photo albums. I was grateful. After Linda died, Melissa was all the family I had left. "Dad, this house is too much for you," she'd say, looking around at the rooms that needed updating, the yard that needed constant maintenance. "You're rattling around in here all by yourself." "I'm doing fine," I'd tell her. And I was. Sure, I was lonely, but I'd built a life in this neighborhood over 30 years. I had my Monday morning coffee group at the diner on 32nd Avenue. I volunteered with Habitat for Humanity on Thursdays. I played chess at the library with 3 other retirees every Saturday. This house, this neighborhood, it was all I had left of the life Linda and I built together. But Melissa kept pushing. "What if you fall and no one finds you? What if the furnace breaks in winter? You're being stubborn, Dad." Maybe I was, but this was my home filled with memories of Linda painting the kitchen cabinets, that pale yellow she loved, of Melissa learning to ride her bike on this very sidewalk, of birthday parties and Thanksgiving dinners and ordinary Tuesday nights watching TV together. Everything changed last September. Melissa called me on a Thursday evening, her voice bright with excitement. "Dad, I have the most amazing opportunity for you." "What's that, sweetheart?" "My friend Cheryl's parents have this gorgeous condo in Sarasota, right on the beach. They're snowbirds, and they need someone to house sit from October through March. 6 months in Florida. Dad, think about it. Warm weather, the beach, no snow to shovel. You could finally relax." I laughed. 6 months. "Melissa, I can't just leave for half a year." "Why not? You're retired. You have no obligations. And honestly, Dad, you've been so isolated since Mom died. This would be good for you. You could make new friends, join activities, live a little. Mom would want you to." That stung because it was true. Linda had always talked about spending winters somewhere warm once we retired. We'd collect travel brochures, dream about places we'd go. Then she got sick, and those dreams evaporated. "I don't know," I said slowly. That's a long time to be away from home, which is actually something we should talk about. Melissa's tone shifted, becoming more businesslike. If you're going to be gone that long, we should set up some safeguards. Just practical stuff. The next weekend, she showed up with paperwork. This is a financial power of attorney, she explained, spreading the documents on my kitchen table. It just gives me the ability to handle things for you while you're in Florida. Pay your bills, make repairs if something breaks, deal with any financial matters that come up. It's totally standard. I hesitated. Something in my gut told me to slow down. Dad, I'm a licensed real estate agent. I deal with this stuff every day. What if there's a plumbing emergency? What if the city sends some notice that needs immediate attention? You'll be 1,800 miles away. This just gives me the legal authority to handle things for you. She was right. It made sense. And this was Melissa, my daughter, the little girl who used to bring me dandelions and call them flowers. Why would she ever hurt me? I signed the papers in front of a notary at her brokerage office. Melissa hugged me tight afterward. You're going to love Sarasota, Dad. This is exactly what you need. The first 2 months in Florida were everything Melissa promised. The condo was beautiful, right on Lido Beach. I'd wake up to the sound of waves, spend my mornings walking the shore, my afternoons reading on the balcony. I made friends with other retirees at the condo complex. There was Harold from Michigan, who'd lost his wife around the same time I lost Linda. We'd sit by the pool in the evenings, drinking beer and talking about everything we'd lost and everything we were trying to find again. I called Melissa every Sunday. She always sounded cheerful, asking about the beach, the weather, the new friends I'd made. I'm so glad you're enjoying yourself, Dad. You deserve this. It was a Tuesday morning in late November when everything shattered. I was getting ready to go kayaking with Harold when my phone rang. Unknown number, Colorado area code. Mr. Hansen, this is Jennifer Martinez from the Denver County Recorder Office. I'm calling about the deed transfer on your property at 2847 Knox Court. My stomach dropped. What deed transfer? There was a pause. According to our records, ownership of the property was transferred on November 18th to KBT Holdings, LLC. The transfer was executed by Melissa Hansen using a power of attorney on file. The balcony seemed to tilt beneath my feet. She did what? The deed was recorded 6 days ago. I'm calling because we received a request for title insurance, and during our review, we noticed the property owner's signature was dated while you were listed as out of state. We like to verify these transfers when there are any irregularities. I spent the next 3 hours on the phone, first with Jennifer, then with a real estate attorney in Denver, then with my bank. The picture that emerged made me physically ill. Melissa had used the power of attorney to transfer ownership of my house to an LLC. Then she'd immediately put the property under contract for $680,000, which was $170,000 below market value. The sale was scheduled to close on December 15th, less than 3 weeks away. But that wasn't all. She'd also opened a home equity line of credit for $300,000 against the property before transferring it. That money was gone, transferred to an account in her name. She can't do that. I told the attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Reeves, she can't sell my house without my permission. Mr. Hansen, with the power of attorney you signed, she technically can. If she can argue, it's in your best interest, especially if she can demonstrate you're unable to manage the property or that you've abandoned it, a court might uphold the transfer. I'm 63 years old and healthy. I'm house-sitting in Florida, not abandoning my home. I understand, but she's a real estate professional. She can argue that liquidating the asset makes financial sense, that maintaining a large property is too much for you, that she's acting in your fiduciary interest We need to move fast. I checked my bank accounts on my phone. My checking account was nearly empty. The savings account I'd built up from the sale of Linda's life insurance policy was gone. Even my investment account, the one I'd been saving for emergencies, had been drained. Everything, except my pension deposits, had been transferred out. I had $12,000 in checking and $800 in my wallet. That was all that was left of a lifetime of savings. How do I stop this? I asked Patricia. You need to revoke the power of attorney immediately, file for an emergency injunction to stop the sale, and get back to Denver. But Mr. Hanson, you're in Florida. That closing is in 18 days. Can you get back here in time to fight this? I looked at the calendar. I wasn't supposed to leave Sarasota until March. But I wasn't waiting another 4 months while my daughter sold my life out from under me. I'll be there in 3 days. I told Harold what was happening. He sat there on the condo balcony shaking his head. My nephew tried something similar, not the house, but he convinced me to make him a co-signer on my accounts. Said he was helping me manage my money. Turned out he was siphoning off funds for his business. I caught it before he could clean me out, but barely. What did you do? I fought back, got a lawyer, got my money back, cut him out of my will. Harold looked at me hard. The question is, what are you going to do? I'm going to get my house back. Then you better start moving. I packed my bag, left a note for Cheryl's parents explaining the emergency, and drove my 2015 Honda Civic straight through to Denver. 26 hours with stops only for gas and bathroom breaks. I lived on gas station coffee and protein bars. I pulled into Denver at 4 a.m. on a Friday morning. There was a lockbox on my front door. A sale pending rider had been added to the for sale sign in my yard. My lawn looked perfect. Someone had been maintaining it, probably to make sure the property showed well. I tried my key. The locks had been changed. I sat on my front porch in the pre-dawn darkness and put my head in my hands. I'd driven 1,800 miles, but I couldn't even get into my own house. That's when my neighbor, Ellen, appeared, walking her dog. She was 71, a retired accountant who'd lived 3 doors down for 40 years. Robert, my God, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Florida. Ellen, I need help. She took me inside her house, made me coffee, and listened to the whole story. When I finished, her face was tight with anger. That terrible girl. After everything you've done for her, do you still have the spare key I keep for you? Ellen had been Linda's best friend. When Linda got sick, Ellen had a key so she could come help when I was at work. I do. But Ellen, if the locks are changed, I made copies, she said quietly. After Linda died, I was worried about you being alone. I made an extra set just in case. I have a key to your back door. The lock on that door is original. At 6 a.m., I let myself into my own house through the back door. Everything looked the same, but wrong. Melissa had already started staging. Some of our furniture was gone. There were boxes in the spare bedroom filled with Linda's things that Melissa had packed up. Our wedding album, the quilt Linda's mother made, the clock we got for our 25th anniversary. All of it boxed and ready to be hauled away or sold. I slept in my own bed that morning and cried for the first time since Linda's funeral. At 9 a.m., I called Patricia. I'm home. What do we do? First, we file a revocation of the power of attorney. I'll email you the form. Second, we file for an emergency injunction to stop the sale. The hearing is set for Monday. Can you be there? Yes. Good. But Robert, you need to understand something. Even if we stopped this sale, Melissa will argue she was acting in your best interest. She's a real estate professional. She can say you're unable to maintain the property, that you were transitioning to Florida permanently, that liquidating your assets is sound planning for someone your age. She has a good lawyer, and this is going to be ugly. How much will this cost me? I'll take it on contingency. If we win, We'll recover attorney fees from Melissa. If we lose, we can't lose. Patricia, this is my home. It's all I have left. The emergency hearing was scheduled for Monday, November 27th. I had 3 days to build my case. I started by gathering evidence. I went to my bank with my ID and demanded copies of every transaction Melissa had made using the power of attorney, the home equity line of credit, the account transfers, the wire transfers to her account, all of it. I interviewed neighbors. Ellen gave a statement that I'd never expressed any desire to sell. Greg from across the street, who played chess with me every week, swore I was of sound mind. Maria from the coffee group confirmed I was an active member of the community with no signs of declining health. I documented everything about the Florida arrangement. The emails from Melissa pushing me to go. The house-sitting agreement that clearly showed it was temporary. The phone records showing I'd called Denver, regularly demonstrating I was still engaged with my life here. Then I found something that changed everything. On Sunday night, I was going through the bank documents when I noticed something odd. The home equity line of credit application had been notarized on November 3rd, but I'd been in Florida since October 15th. The signature looked like mine, but I'd never signed anything. I pulled out the power of attorney documents and compared signatures. They were similar, but not identical. The loop on the R and Robert was different. The slant was slightly off. Melissa had forged my signature, and the notary had either been complicit or hadn't actually witnessed any signature at all. Either way, it was fraud. I called Patricia. I've got her. The hearing on Monday was in a small courtroom in downtown Denver. Melissa showed up with her lawyer, a polished man in his 40s, named Richard Strauss. She wouldn't look at me. She sat at the defendant's table, twisting a tissue in her hands. Troy wasn't there. Judge Maria Gonzalez presided. She was in her 50s with reading glasses and a no-nonsense expression. She reviewed the file, then looked at me. Mr. Hansen, you're alleging that your daughter committed fraud and abused a power of attorney you granted her. Yes, Your Honor. And Miss Hansen, you're arguing that you acted within the scope of the power of attorney in your father's best interest. Richard Strauss stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client is a licensed real estate professional. She recognized that her father was no longer able to maintain a substantial property while clearly transitioning to a more mobile lifestyle. The 6-month absence indicated he was no longer attached to the property. She acted to liquidate an asset that was becoming a burden. A burden. I couldn't help myself. It's my home. The judge looked at me. Mr. Hansen, you'll have your chance. Help me understand the timeline. You granted this power of attorney in September. September 12th, Your Honor. My daughter told me it was standard procedure for extended travel, and you departed for Florida on October 15th. Yes, Your Honor. And the home equity line of credit was opened on November 3rd while you were in Florida. Yes, Your Honor. And that's the problem. The bank's documents show a notary seal and my signature, but I never signed those documents. I was in Florida. The judge frowned and looked at the evidence Patricia had submitted. Miss Hansen, can you explain this? Melissa's lawyer whispered urgently to her. She shook her head. He whispered again. Finally, Melissa stood. My father. He signed the documents before he left for Florida. The notary made an error with the date. An error. The judge's eyebrows went up. You're telling me the notary dated the documents 3 weeks after they were signed? Yes, Your Honor. That's a lie, I said. Your Honor, I never signed those documents. I never authorized a home equity line of credit. I never authorized the transfer of my house to an LLC. My daughter forged my signature. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Hansen. The judge looked at Melissa. Miss Hansen, did you sign these documents on your father's behalf? Melissa looked at her lawyer. I could see it in her face, the guilt, the fear, the realization that she'd been caught. I was trying to help him, she said, her voice breaking. The house is too much for him. He's alone there. He's getting older, I thought. I thought if I could just sell it, I could use the money to set him up in a nice, assisted living facility near me, where he'd be safe. I don't need assisted living, I said louder than I meant to. I'm 63 years old. I'm healthy. I have a community. That house is my home, and you had no right to take it from me. The judge held up her hand. Everyone, calm down. Miss Hanson, did your father authorize you to forge his signature on the home equity line of credit application? No, Your Honor. Did he authorize you to transfer ownership of his house to an LLC? Not explicitly. But the power of attorney gave me the authority. A power of attorney gives you authority to act on someone's behalf, not to act against their interests, and certainly not to commit forgery and fraud. The judge looked at the documents again. Where's the $300,000 from the home equity line? Richard Strauss stood quickly. Your Honor, that's not relevant. It's absolutely relevant. $300,000 was withdrawn from a line of credit on Mr. Hanson's property using forged documents. Where is that money? Melissa started crying. Troy, my boyfriend, he had gambling debts. Serious gambling debts. The kind where people show up at your door threatening you. He owed $280,000 to a loan shark. I thought if I could just use some of Dad's equity to pay off the debt, we could pay him back when the house sold. He was going to get over $600,000 after the sale. He wouldn't have even missed it. The courtroom went silent. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. This was never about what was best for me. This was about Troy's gambling addiction, about Melissa trying to save her boyfriend from loan sharks, with my money, with my home. The judge took off her glasses. Miss Hanson, you understand that what you're describing is fraud, forgery, and theft. I was going to pay him back, Melissa sobbed. I swear I was going to pay him back, with his own money, from his own house. The judge shook her head. Mr. Hanson, I'm granting your injunction. The sale of the house is stopped immediately. The power of attorney is revoked. The property transfer to KBT Holdings is voided. She looked at Melissa with disgust. Miss Hanson, you're ordered to return all funds obtained from the home equity line of credit within 30 days or face criminal charges. If your father chooses to press charges for fraud and forgery, that's his right. We're adjourned. I sat there as the courtroom emptied, feeling numb. Melissa tried to approach me, but Patricia stepped between us. Don't, Patricia said. You've done enough. Daddy, please, Melissa said, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I was desperate. Troy's debt. They were threatening to hurt him. I didn't know what else to do. You could have asked me for help, I said quietly. You could have told me the truth. Instead, you shipped me off to Florida so you could steal my home. I wasn't stealing it. Liar. The word came out harder than I meant to. You were going to sell my house, pay off your boyfriend's gambling debts, and stick me in some facility somewhere. You thought I'd never find out until it was too late. That's not true. Get out. I don't want to see you right now. Melissa stood there for a moment, then turned and left. The next 3 weeks were a nightmare of legal paperwork. The home equity line of credit was declared fraudulent and canceled. The bank took a loss, but they didn't pursue it against me, since I could prove I never authorized it. The sale fell through. Melissa had 30 days to return the $300,000. She couldn't. Troy had already used $280,000 to pay off his gambling debts. The other $20,000 was gone on rent and lawyer fees. That's when Troy showed up at my house. It was a Friday evening in mid-December. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there alone, looking haggard and scared. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. Robert, I need to talk to you. About what? About how you convinced my daughter to commit fraud for your gambling problem. I know. I know. What we did was wrong, but Melissa's falling apart. She's not sleeping. She's not eating. She thinks you hate her. She thinks she's going to prison. Maybe she should. Troy flinched. Please. She's already lost her real estate license. The Colorado Division of Real Estate suspended her pending investigation. She can't work. We can't pay you back. We've sold everything. My parents can't help. If we don't pay you back, you'll press charges and she'll go to prison. Why should I help you? You almost cost me my home. You shouldn't. You have every right to hate us. But Melissa's your daughter, your only child. What would Linda want you to do? That question hit me like a freight train. Linda, who always believed in forgiveness. Linda, who loved Melissa more than anything. Linda, who would be heartbroken to see what had become of our family. But Linda also believed in accountability, in consequences, in people facing what they'd done. I'll think about it, I said, and closed the door. That night, I sat in the living room and looked at the photos on the mantel. Melissa as a baby, her first day of school, her college graduation, the last photo of the three of us together before Linda got sick. I thought about the phone call from the county recorder, the moment my world shattered, the betrayal, the fear, the feeling of being utterly helpless while someone stole my life. But I also thought about Melissa at 6, bringing me breakfast, in bed on Father's Day. Melissa at 13, crying on my shoulder when her first boyfriend dumped her. Melissa at 25, telling me she was proud to be my daughter. When had I stopped being her hero? When had she started seeing me as a problem to be solved instead of her father? I picked up the phone and called her. She answered on the first ring. Dad, I'm not dropping the charges. I said, You committed fraud, Melissa. You forged my signature. You tried to steal my home. Those are serious crimes, and there have to be consequences. I heard her sob. But I'm not sending you to prison. Here's what's going to happen. You and Troy are going to pay me back the $300,000. I don't care how long it takes. You're going to work with Patricia to set up a payment plan, every penny, plus interest. And you're going to pay for all my legal fees. Dad, I'm not finished. I'm changing my will. This house doesn't go to you when I die. It goes to charity, the Denver Children's Hospital. They'll sell it and use the money for cancer research in Linda's name. You're not getting this house, Melissa, ever. The line was quiet then. I understand. I deserve that. Yes, you do. Can I ever see you again? I thought about that. Maybe someday, but not now. Right now, I need time. Time to trust again. Time to figure out if I even want a relationship with someone who could do what you did. I love you, Daddy. I know. But love isn't enough. Love doesn't excuse what you did. I hung up. 3 weeks later, I was back in court one final time. Melissa agreed to repay the $300,000 over 10 years with 6% interest, plus all legal fees. The fraud charges were dropped in exchange for the repayment agreement and her acceptance of responsibility. As I walked out of the courthouse, Patricia walked beside me. How do you feel? She asked. I don't know. I got my house back. I got a repayment plan, but I lost my daughter. Did you, or did she lose herself? That was 6 months ago. Today, I'm still living in my house on Knox Court. The lockbox is gone. The for sale sign is gone. The locks are changed again, and I'm the only one with a key. I still go to coffee on Monday mornings. I still play chess on Saturdays. I still volunteer with Habitat for Humanity. Ellen still waves from 3 doors down, and Greg still comes over to watch Broncos games on Sundays. My life looks the same, but everything's different. Melissa sends me emails. She doesn't ask to see me. She just updates me on her life. She and Troy broke up. She's working as a bookkeeper now, trying to rebuild her life. She's seeing a therapist. She's making payments every month. She says she thinks about what she did every day. She says she's sorry. I don't know if I'll ever forgive her. Forgiveness is complicated. Linda always made it look easy, but I'm not Linda. I'm just a man who was betrayed by the person he trusted most. A man who had to fight his own daughter to keep his home. A man who learned that family doesn't always mean loyalty. But here's what I know. I survived. When Melissa shipped me off to Florida and tried to sell my life out from under me, I didn't give up. I drove 1,800 miles. I stood in front of a judge and told the truth. I won. And when my daughter opened that front door and saw me sitting in my father's chair, when she realized that all her careful plans had fallen apart, she learned something important. I might be 63. I might be a widower living alone. I might be lonely sometimes and sad sometimes, but I'm not helpless. I'm not easy to victimize, and I'm not going anywhere. This house, this life, it's mine, and nobody, not even my own daughter, gets to take it away from me. When Melissa finally composed herself that day and asked me how I'd done it, how I'd found out and stopped everything, I looked at her and said exactly what I'd been planning to say since that phone call from Jennifer Martinez. You underestimated me. You thought because I trusted you, I was weak. You thought because I'm getting older, I'm stupid. You thought because Mom died, I had nothing left to fight for. I shook my head. You were wrong about all of it. She left that day with Troy, taking her real estate contract with her. I watched them drive away, and then I closed the door. I'm still here, still standing, still fighting. And every morning, when I wake up in my own bed, in my own house, with the mountains visible through my window, I remember that I did this. I saved myself. I protected what was mine. That's worth more than any relationship built on lies. That's worth everything.